Studios was closing in on who said director for the X-Men reboot would be. Well, cue up today's story coming from the Twitter of superstar, everybody's favorite anonymous My Time to Shine Below, who has indicated that Ryan Coogler is actually in contention in the first choice for Marvel Studios' X-Men reboot as the director, and that he's already signed on confirmed for Black Panther 3, a film that's been heavily rumored, and especially real recently, is possibly making its way into the multiverse saga to set up Shuri and eventually the next Black Panther as we make our way to Avengers Secret Wars and eventually the end of the multiverse saga. Now, my immediate reaction to this is actually extremely positive. I loved the first Black Panther film and think Wakanda Forever was one of the strongest offerings out of Phase 4 and Phase 5. He definitely has an amazing eye for color and cinematography and understands how to do a huge budget action Marvel film. There have been some crazy names floated out there real recently from industry insiders on how big Marvel Studios wanted to go with directors for Avengers Secret Wars, for Spider-Man, which we'll get into in just a second, and of course for the X-Men reboot. But I think Ryan Coogler is an excellent choice, only because Marvel, and especially real recently, has looked towards brand new talent both on the writing and directing side for some of these films. I could point this out all over the place, but keep in mind the first draft for the Fantastic Four, which they are still using in part, was drafted by two people who have no published scripts in Hollywood. Zero. They've also hired directors who have very limited stuff on their resume, some TV episodes or less, to come in and direct their movies. Other big directors like, say, Chloe Zhao, who come in already having won awards with their own direction, maybe don't work as well in sort of the confines of what Marvel Studios is looking to do. But someone like Ryan Coogler, to me, is a perfect fit for the studio and for the fans, because we sort of know as a finished product exactly what we're looking to get from that film and what it might look like, and we also know that director can work with the studios and vice versa to produce a good film where in Phase 4 or Phase 5, let's admit, maybe some of these new directors and writers have either led to extensive reshoots and retoolings of the script where the end product isn't all that great, or if they don't, the end product is less than we expected to begin with. To me, this is a perfect fit. Now, I mentioned Spider-Man and put asterisks about that just seconds ago, as we're also hearing from My Time to Shine Below, again, the anonymous Twitter scoopster with a proven track record over the last 2 or 3 years, who isn't always correct, but gets a lot more right than they get wrong, that James Wan, the director from Aquaman, is actually in line in the first choice to direct Spider-Man 4. I also love that. It's funny that both of these directors, to me, one of the things that stands out about their cinematography and direction is their use of color in the film, and I think James Wan would be another perfect fit for Marvel Studios. And if they can lock down these two directors before this stands out about their cinematography, from Aquaman is actually in line in the first choice to direct Spider-Man 4. I also love that. It's funny that both of these directors, to me, one of the things that stands out about their cinematography and direction is their use of color in the film, and I think James Wan would be another perfect fit for Marvel Studios, and if they can lock down these two directors before these projects. Now, I think another big takeaway here is, obviously, we have not heard a lot about a Black Panther 3, Shang-Chi 2, Doctor Strange 3, Spider-Man 4, Thor 5. These are the films and the extensions of the established franchises we heard may make their way onto the slate before we get to Avengers Secret Wars. Now we know Avengers 5 is still aimed to come out in 2026, and if you missed our update from yesterday with the new reveals for 2024, what's going on with Marvel Studios, we know they're actually set to start production on Avengers 5 this year, or rather the last day in this year, December 31st, which puts them on target for that 2026 release date. If they're truly going to work Black Panther 3 in alongside Shang-Chi 2, which we know is unannounced but confirmed, Doctor Strange 3, Thor 5, Armor Wars, all these other films, I think it more and more likely that Avengers Secret Wars becomes a 1- and 2-part film, and they push that a lot further. That's why they get Avengers 5 out now, to give everyone an Avengers film, and then give us a 2-part Secret Wars that's even further down the line, say maybe 2029, 2030, so that they can get all these films in. And to me, doing a lot more work as we lead up to Avengers Secret Wars is the best way to do it. And it also means a lot more likely that X-Men reboot, that live-action film, is coming during the multiverse saga and not after, which obviously has huge implications. But you guys let me know all your thoughts down below. Do you like Ryan Coogler to direct X-Men, the reboot from the MCU? If not him, who would you want? And of course, since his name was also tied to Avengers Secret Wars, do you think he's the right guy for that? I am all ears as always. Quickly, let's get into the giveaway stuff before I let you go. All right, we are still giving away PlayStation 5s here at the channel, and in fact, the next one is less than a week away to coincide with the finale of X-Men 97. If you want to enter to win or for any of the future prizes here at the channel, all the same rules will always apply. Hit the subscribe button because you need to be a subscriber, then leave a comment down below because it's truly random. The more videos you comment on, the better chance you have of winning. All winners will be announced at the end of videos, the same way we're doing here with my voice, live announced in the comments shown on the screen, so please be safe and vigilant wherever you are on YouTube or any other platform. The best way to keep up with the content at the channel has always been to hit the notification bell with all the notifications turned on, and as always, if you like today's video, I'd appreciate it if you hit the like button. My name is Michael Roman. You can find me in a couple of places, Instagram and Twitter at @IGFires. You can also find me on Spotify, YouTube, Amazon, Apple, iTunes, where you listen to original music under the name All Fires. Well, I'd sincerely appreciate you checking the music out. Thanks for checking this channel out. Stick around. We'll be posting again real soon.
This episode of the Y-Files is brought to you by Aura. Hey, it's me. Thanks for checking out this compilation. I wasn't sure if anyone was going to like these, but people seem to enjoy them, so that helps because we're off for 2 more weeks. And yes, Jen and I took a couple of days off. That explains the sunburn. I hadn't seen the sun in a couple of... Sorry about this. The plane shudders. Admiral Byrd grabs the controls, but they're not responding. He notices the plane feels light and buoyant. Then, on both sides of the plane, strange aircraft are rapidly closing in. They're disc-shaped and seem to be radiating light, and somehow they're running completely silent. Now, thinking this is now a really good time to head back, Admiral Byrd tries the controls again. No luck. The plane's engine suddenly cuts out, but somehow continues flying, controlled by some unseen force. The craft are right up alongside his plane now, close enough that Admiral Byrd can see markings. In that instant, his wonder turns to terror. The markings are swastikas. According to documents leaked in 1991, things back at Camp Little America take a strange turn. Just 2 days after arriving, bright lights were seen on the horizon. The sailors thought it was another ship, but they were below the Antarctic Circle in uncharted waters. The lights then ascended at a 45-degree angle into the sky very quickly. They tried to make radar contact, but were out of range. 3 hours later, 5 more lights appeared in the sky and began flying directly toward the ships. Anti-aircraft guns and 20-millimeter cannons were fired, but had no effect. A radio operator stationed on the USS Brownson gave testimony of how strange craft suddenly appeared from the ocean. This is corroborated by Lieutenant John Sayerson, who said objects shot vertically out of the water at tremendous speeds. One object flew between the masts of the ship with such force that the radio antenna oscillated back and forth from the turbulence. An aircraft from the USS Currituck took to the sky but was immediately struck by a beam of energy and destroyed. About 10 miles away, the torpedo boat USS Maddox burst into flames and began to sink. According to the report, this was the first attack of several that would occur over the next few weeks. February 26 would be the last engagement with the unknown craft. The Navy task force ordered retreat and left the area, a full 6 months before their mission was supposed to end. Although Lieutenant Sayerson couldn't identify the lights, he wondered if they were what he called German wonder weapons, being operated by survivors of the recently defeated Third Reich, operating out of a secret base under Antarctica. His testimony has fueled speculation that still exists, and to this day, investigators are trying to determine what really happened during Operation Hijack. Admiral Byrd's radio, which hadn't been working for at least an hour, suddenly comes back to life. Though the signal was distorted, a voice starts speaking English with a slightly German accent.
Welcome, Admiral, to our domain. We are leaving in 67 minutes. Thanks, Admiral. You are in good hands.
The plane gently lands itself, and Admiral Byrd is met by several men, all tall with blonde hair. Aliens. Sounds like it. Byrd joins the strangers on a platform that levitates and rushes them toward the city at great speed. He's directed to an elevator that takes him quickly and silently deep underground. He is to have an audience with the Master. Admiral Byrd is led into another room where an older man is seated at a long table. Admiral Byrd is asked to sit down. The Master says his people are called the Ariani, and they've been observing humans for a long time. But only now are they choosing to interfere. The Master says that Admiral Byrd's race is too immature for atomic energy, and are at risk of destroying themselves. The Master says every time they try to make contact, their ships are fired upon and pursued by fighter planes. So instead they chose Admiral Byrd to carry this message. Because he's a famous and well-respected figure, the Master hopes that the world will believe it. After the meeting, the Admiral is escorted back to his plane. And after flying for a few minutes, a voice comes through the radio that control of the aircraft is now his. A voice says, "Auf Wiedersehen," and disconnects.
Definitely aliens.
When Admiral Byrd arrives at the Pentagon in March 1947, he is debriefed and interrogated for hours. He relays the message from the Master and advises the President. He's ordered to remain silent about the operation, and indeed, Admiral Richard E. Byrd never spoke a word about this mission again. The final entry in his diary is a number of years later. Admiral Byrd feels what he calls the long night coming, but doesn't want this knowledge to die with him.
Just as the long night of the Arctic ends, the brilliant sunshine of truth shall come again. And those who are in darkness shall fall in its light, for I have seen that land beyond the pole, that center of the great unknown. Admiral Richard E. Byrd, United States Navy, 24th of December, 1956.
And Admiral Byrd passed away 3 months later. This secret diary was found by his son, Richard Byrd Jr., and subsequently released, as was his father's wish. And 18 months after that, the Antarctic Treaty was signed, forbidding anyone from going to Antarctica without special permission from one of 12 signatory governments. And even with special permission, you may only go in a few small designated areas. Antarctica is bigger than Europe, bigger than Australia, bigger than the entire United States. Yet all that land is off limits. Why? Was there a secret Nazi base? Is there a civilization living underground? The UFOs described by the sailors in 1947 behave an awful lot like UFOs we're seeing right now. Since we can't go to their world, they could be trying to come to us, with the same warning they gave Admiral Byrd. So maybe instead of trying to destroy these craft and destroy each other, we might want to listen to what they have to say. And who knows, the entire fate of the world may depend on it. Okay, talk about a story having UFOs, Nazi bases, government cover-ups, even Hollow Earth. And I've done a lot of research on Hollow Earth, so if you want to see that video, let me know in the comments. Anyway, I'll tell you right up front, there's a lot of the story that can be debunked, but not all of it. Let's start with Admiral Byrd's secret diary. It's not real. First of all, the flight in the diary takes place in the North Pole, so we're already off to a rocky start since Antarctica is as far south as you can get. And some of the log entries are almost identical to actual published log entries from the Admiral. The same types of instrument failures, engine issues show up in both places for some reason. Also, whole paragraphs of what the Master said to Admiral Byrd seem to be plagiarized from the 1937 film Lost Horizon, where the main character is talking to the Dalai Lama, who issues the same kind of warning. In 1964, a book about the Hollow Earth was released by Walter Siegmeister under the pen name Raymond Bernard. Admiral Byrd is mentioned quite a bit in the book. Bernard went on to write lots of books about UFOs and Hollow Earth, and later, when Byrd's secret diary appeared, guess who wrote the foreword? Yep, Raymond Bernard. But the dead giveaway for me? The secret diary is full of exclamation points, like lots of them. If you read any of Byrd's other logs, no matter how excited he gets, he doesn't write like he's posting on Reddit. He writes like a gentleman. So, what about the Nazis? Here's where it gets tricky. The Schwabenland did go to Antarctica in 1938, But its mission was to secure new ports for whaling, to supply Germany with its own whale oil for margarine.
A Nazi mission to the South Pole for a delicious buttery spread?
Exactly. Germany wasn't at war yet, but Hitler was planning it. A lot of oil and fat-based products were imported. Hitler wanted to make sure that these industries could continue, and his army could be fed in case foreign supplies were cut off. The Nazi mission did claim some land for Germany, and it's widely thought that they did look for a location for a base and maybe even tried to build one, but no evidence of a base has been found. However, Nazi artifacts have been found in the Arctic in the north, which could be why this story continues to circulate. But so far, nothing in this
Could be underground.
it could be. I'm not saying nothing's there. I'm just saying we haven't found it yet.
Found and are intelligent.
But that's always a possibility. The U.S. government did lie about the real purpose of Operation Hydra. And it's true Admiral Byrd never spoke about it publicly, except for those cryptic comments in the Chilean newspaper El Mercurio. El Mercurio is a real paper, and Admiral Byrd did give them an interview. Obviously, the article was released in Spanish, but when it was translated back to English, its words were twisted around to make the story sound more dramatic.
I don't think the facts get in the way of the story.
Right. Byrd never said there are ships that can fly pole to pole at tremendous speeds. He said the United States could be attacked by planes coming from the poles, and it should be ready for that. And Operation High Jump had a press contingent, about a dozen reporters giving daily reports. There really wasn't much going on, so rather than send back a three-word story, lots of ice, the reporters added their own flair. For example, Byrd did find a small lake that had uniquely warm temperatures with algae growing in it, but it was reported as a lake of open green lakes and round hills and an otherwise limitless expanse of sea. In 1991, after the collapse of the Soviet Union, millions of secret documents were released. One of those, written in 1947, was a description of Operation High Jump. And in 2006, a Russian documentary was released based on that secret intelligence report. The Soviets did believe that Operation High Jump was a mission to find and destroy a Nazi base. And look, with all that firepower, I don't think that's a stretch. The reports of the battle with UFOs comes from the Soviet documents. But it's iffy on the facts, and they got some of the names of the ships wrong. But they did get some right. And the U.S. military has a history of changing a ship's name and rewriting the ship's story if it serves any purpose. The Soviet reports said that UFOs weren't trying to destroy the American ships, which they easily could have done. They just wanted the ships to turn back. The mission was confirmation. The official reason for that is weather. But that's a lot of resources wasted because of weather. Were there really UFOs protecting something down there? Or was this disinformation deliberately leaked to the Soviets by U.S. intelligence? I don't know. I've debunked as much as I can for you, even though a lot of the story is false. I don't know what it is. And it seems as the only way to get answers is to go to Antarctica. But if there's one thing that every government in the world agrees on, it's that whatever is down there needs to stay there. But I'll leave you with these reports. Just a few months after Operation High Jump, a UFO allegedly crashed in Roswell, New Mexico. The location of the crash is only a few miles from its first nuclear explosion. And Byrd did go missing for 3 hours and arrived back at camp 3 hours late. He was in a small short-range airplane, so why did he run out of fuel? I still enjoy that one. I love the sequence of the airplane was flying around the hole, and it's I still kind of cringe at it because I couldn't do the whole thing. I can make it so much better. The production has come a long way since then. And next up is the story of Dolby, Schneider, Tulsa Underground Base. And this was episode 85. And this was about the time where I started feeling like I to the intelligence community. Not like the guys and gals that are curious. I love those people. I mean the shadow government, the shadow intelligence, the people that keep UFO information from us. And I don't know what they are. I know they know something. So, this was the episode that touches on the intertwining stories that entire UFO community, at which I still think that community has not recovered from it yet. I don't want to say this is a super dark episode, but we do get pretty serious. Either way, it's a wild one.
115+00.
Everyone's heard of Area 51, the top secret facility in the Nevada desert. But nobody really knows what happens there. We have only rumors. One rumor is that alien bodies have been recovered from UFO crashes. Those aliens have been autopsied and subjects of medical experiments for years. Have you ever heard of Dulce Base? Dulce is more secret than Area 51, and more sinister. If Area 51 is the place where humans experiment on aliens, Dulce is the place where aliens experiment on us. Dulce is a town in New Mexico near the Colorado border on the Hickory Apache Reservation. Though the town is small, with fewer than 3,000 people, the area has the largest number of UFO sightings per capita in the world. The stories of strange lights and objects in the sky go back as far as the first people to inhabit the area thousands of years ago. Other stories claim there's an underground base within the Richland Mesa near Dulce. Though there's never been hard evidence of this base, there are quite a few people who've come forward over the years that indicate something is happening in the area. There are witnesses who claim to have worked on the construction of the base, worked out the base, and some who've seen it from the air. There are even people who've claimed to have seen the base from the inside after being taken there against their will. In 1975, a rancher in Tulsa called the police in a panic. One of his cattle had been killed. At first, he thought it was a predator, but predators don't do this. Officer Gabe Valdez responded to the tip. He couldn't believe what he found. The cow was drained of all its blood and had undergone a procedure where many of its organs were surgically removed. And around the cow's carcass were tracks in the soil that looked like they came from the feet of a tribesman. Next to each of the tracks, the ground was scorched, indicating there was an aircraft that could take off and land vertically. In the tracks, there was a yellow, oily substance that couldn't be identified by any lab. It seemed as if the tripods, whatever they were, followed the cow for about 600 feet. Valdez was able to see where the cow had struggled before this happened. Valdez knew this was a little outside of his lane, so he contacted Dr. Howard Burgess of Santan National Labs. Dr. Burgess arrived 72 hours later to assist. The 3 days had passed, the cow wasn't decomposing, and feeders and scavengers were near her. And at some point during those 3 days, one of the cow's ears was removed. Over the following months, 17 animals would be killed this way, all were missing their lymph node, all were missing multiple organs, and all were taken surgically. All the animals were drained of blood, and the little blood that remained couldn't clot, not even after several days. Soon, investigators started to become sick. 7 people who visited the ranch complained about headaches and nausea. This gave Dr. Burgess the idea to test radiation levels in the air. The radiation was twice what it should be. But during this time, investigators were looking at night and saw large lights moving silently in the sky. Investigators working during the day saw black helicopters circling overhead. Valdez wondered if this was more than a local phenomenon. He looked for cases of animal mutilation in the surrounding areas, and over the course of a few years, an estimated 8,000 mutilations were reported. I was able to find the official computer report of this giant blood. Despite everything I told you about the condition of these animals, the FBI said no. It was consistently put into action, and there was no federal interest in continuing an investigation.
Evidence is incredible.
What predator is that?
Animal from movies with the face like a sponge.
Why do you bring it up? Where was that predator from?
Another planet? Where's it please? I can kill it.
In 1927, Howard to join the Coast Guard as a teenager. He had a master's degree in physics and was pursuing his PhD. He opened an electronics company in New Mexico. Paul was primary clients for the Air Force and NASA. He did so much business with the Air Force that he actually bought a home and established a lab right next to Kirtland Air Force Base. We have an entire episode that covers him and how he was misled and abused by the United States government. Like one, Kirtland Air Force Base is a massive complex spanning over 80 square miles. Over 20,000 people work on the base. Kirtland also happens to be the largest storage facility for nuclear weapons in the Western Hemisphere. On the grounds are the Monsanto Mountains, and under the Monsantos are 80 underground bunkers, including a presidential emergency shelter. Connecting the bunkers are over 40 separate tunnels, though nobody knows for sure how many. The people who built the facility are not allowed to tell anyone about what they're working. Paul was a gifted engineer and was interested in UFOs. From Paul's second floor balcony, he observed and filmed strange lights in the sky. He also recorded radio transmissions that seemed to be alien in origin. Paul occasionally worked for several UFO groups, including the Aerial Phenomena Research Organization, known as APRO. Even though UFO research wasn't yet mainstream, APRO was a respected organization for scientifically grounded research. In 1979, Paul attended a conference in Albuquerque where he met Officer Gay Valdez. They treated stories about cattle mutilations, alien abductions, and UFO sightings that were happening in the area. Gay Valdez and Paul Benowitz struck up a friendship. Valdez was basically the go-to cop for any strange phenomenon in the area, and Paul was compiling more and more data that aliens were real, were here, and were very interested in Kirtland Air Force Base. In 1980, Valdez caught the Myrna Hansen case and asked Paul Benowitz for help. Myrna Hansen seemed to have had a terrifying experience. She was driving to her home in Eagles, New Mexico. Both she and her son saw two UFOs over a field. They left the car running and got out to take a closer look. They saw the cattle grazing in the field get lifted into one of the UFOs by a beam of light. The next thing she knew, Myrna and her son were back in the car with the engine off, and hours had passed. What happened during those hours, she had trouble remembering. What she did remember, she had trouble discussing. So Gabe and Paul brought in a psychology professor to place Myrna under hypnosis to see if she could access these suppressed memories. The hypnosis session began, and based on what Myrna Hansen remembered, she had every reason to be terrified. Myrna Hansen remembered that as she was driving and saw very bright lights in the sky, she and her son picked up the car to see what they were. The lights were coming from the time that were affecting herd cattle. One cow seemed to be struggling and panicking as it was levitated up into one of the objects. Then she remembered that she was abducted and given a thorough and very violating physical examination. And though her abductors never spoke, she recalls hearing them in her mind. They said she was taken by accident, but now that she was here, they had no choice but to continue with the procedure. She described their appearance as what we now call a gray alien. She also reported being taken to an underground base, and there she saw body parts floating in vats of bubbling liquid, and she remembered a terrible smell. The alien abduction stories are unfortunately fairly common now, but in 1980 this was very unusual. And then Myrna remembered something really disturbing, something that could be confirmed. She said a device was surgically implanted into her body, and she believed this was so the aliens could track her and control her body. Now, this could be checked. Myrna was taken to the nearby Lovelace Medical Center and x-rayed. At the base of her skull, right where she said it would be, was the implant. Myrna also had a very faint swelling in her neck. Now, to be fair, the doctors thought it was an afterthought. They didn't know what would come. The doctors might not have been convinced. Myrna Hansen, Gabe Valdez, and Paul Benowitz were. There was an alien presence focused on the Kirtland Air Force Base and on the town of Tulsa over the way. You remember, Paul Benowitz was reporting everything he saw to the Air Force. Richard Doty, an agent with the Air Force Office of Special Investigation, XIV, was assigned to Paul's case. Doty and Paul spent so much time together, they became personal friends. Paul showed Richard Doty sketches that Myrna Hansen made when she saw her when she was abducted. She drew hallways, elevators, rooms, and laboratories. Doty confirmed that her drawings matched the Monsanto weapons storage complex, which was an underground facility. Over the next 20 years, more and more information emerged that confirmed not only were aliens on Earth, but they're also working within the United States government. But when did this partnership begin? And why would the government be working with aliens and for what goal? In 1995, we would get our answer when Phil Schneider, an engineer who built Tulsa Base, blew the whistle. And it's darker than you could possibly imagine. In 2021, the Pentagon budget was $750 million. Since 1996, the American military has received $8.5 trillion in taxpayer dollars and never has had to account for any of it. In 2016, an investigation discovered that the Pentagon was covering up $125 billion in so-called wasted dollars. Now, if the military budget comes up short in a given year, whatever number that is, it gets written in. It's called a plug, and then boom, balanced budget.
You try not paying taxes and see how that works out for you.
They throw you in jail. But there's evidence that the money is not being wasted. It's actually part of the Pentagon's black budget. In 1995, at the Preparedness Expo, Phil Schneider blew the whistle on one of the most secret black budget programs in history.
On the southwest part of the Archuleta Basin, built an underground facility for keeping clouds off the underground. The bases in the early stages of building the drill for large tunneling holes. Some of them ran 2.5 miles under the surface. They kept coming up broken. So you want to go down and we'll send somebody down there, a human observer, or a human observer in this case, find out what's going on.
In 1979, Schneider was working for Carson Knudsen on a geology team, digging exploratory shafts for a new underground base in Tulsa. And working with heavy-duty equipment, the drills kept breaking. As the drill punched through, Phil described black, sooty air building up through the opening, and the air smelled like crunch. Phil put on a protective suit and headed out to investigate. And on the way, walking through camp, he noticed there were a lot of troops.
I saw many people encamped inside of our geologist camp, I guess. So,
When Phil reached the bottom, he was face to face with a 7-foot-tall gray alien. He said it stench was worse than anything he'd ever smelled before. Then another alien appeared. Phil panicked, grabbed his pistol, and started firing. And he managed to kill one of the aliens. The others started firing back. Phil was hit with what he called a plasma weapon and lost 2 fingers and part of his left hand. And this plasma weapon also gave him cancer.
Never bring a gun into a plasma fight.
That's good advice. Now, Phil thought he was dead when suddenly a green beret who had followed him down grabbed him and put him on the lift. Now, Phil made it, but nobody else did. 66 men lost their lives in what was called the Battle of Dulce Base. The American military had accidentally drilled into an alien base that had been there for 400 or 500 years. So now the military had a choice to make: go to war with the aliens or cooperate with them. Now, winning a war against entities with such advanced technology wasn't possible, so a deal was struck. Aliens would give advanced technology to humans.
And what did the humans have to give to the aliens?
Well, humans would have to give the aliens other humans.
our United States government lied, did not tell us anything about the alien threat. There's a war underneath there, and I'm talking dead serious.
Phil Schneider was an outspoken advocate for government transparency about the alien presence on Earth. He became well known on the UFO lecture circuit, giving talks about his time working on top-secret government projects. He's most known for his talk at the 1995 Preparedness Expo, where he revealed all kinds of information. As of 1995, there were 131 active secret underground bases in the United States and 1,477 around the world. All the bases in the United States are connected by magnetic levitation trains that can reach speeds of Mach 2. Phil said that there are 7 benevolent alien species currently living on Earth, and 4 evil species. He said that the U.S. government signed 4 treaties with the aliens, in 1944, in 1954, 1962, and the last one in 1979 after the Dulce Battle. The treaty signed in 1954, called the Brianna Treaty, was signed between the U.S. government and a species of gray aliens. The treaty says aliens would be allowed to abduct and experiment on humans as long as the U.S. government, specifically the committee known as Majestic 12, was informed and provided a list of abductees.
The government sure does like making lists of people, eh?
It sure does.
Oh, why needed so many abductions? Don't aliens know how boring humans are?
Well, according to Phil Schneider, at least 9 races of aliens view humans as a food source.
Here's a cookbook.
It's a cookbook. Classic Twilight Zone episode. But the aliens don't consume human flesh. Instead, they use the secretions of glands from mammals. This species of alien suffers from a genetic disorder, and the enzymes and mammal hormones keep the aliens healthy. And some alien races use human adrenaline as a recreational intoxicant.
Ugh, they get high from human secretions?
They do.
And yeah, that's a hard pass for me.
Me too. In exchange for access to humans for experimentation, the aliens would provide the United States with advanced technology. According to Phil Schneider, military technology is 1,200 years ahead of what civilians have now. Stealth technology came from aliens. The U.S. government now has the ability to create special metal alloys, but they can only be created in the vacuum of space. The U.S. military has a device that causes earthquakes. The 1989 San Francisco earthquake and the 1995 Kobe earthquake were weapons tests.
They go to score, and he fails to get Dave Parker at second base, so the Oakland A's they
Phil Schneider makes all kinds of other claims. He said the bombings of the World Trade Center in 1993 and the Oklahoma City bombing of 1995 were done with miniature nuclear devices provided by the aliens. He said AIDS and other viruses were created as a means of controlling the population.
All right, hold on. I gotta stop you there.
What?
You expect me to believe that a government would artificially create a dangerous virus in a lab? My friend, that is a bridge too far.
Sarcasm.
Yes, of course it's sarcasm.
Phil Schneider believed that all this was happening for one purpose: to establish a new world order. The alien plan is to completely take over the planet and eliminate almost 90% of the world's population.
Ooh, this is the kind of talk that makes the men in black come a knocking.
That's true. And Phil Schneider said he was under constant surveillance by the government. He even claimed he was attacked by an FBI agent and killed the agent in self-defense. And he reported this to the FBI, but nothing came of it.
No, because the government would have to admit to all this stuff.
That's right. Phil was constantly in fear for his life. He said he had 11 close friends all die under mysterious circumstances, but every death was ruled a suicide. In fact, Phil Schneider told his friends and family over and over, if I ever end up dead, I didn't kill myself. It was murder. He was adamant about this.
Yeah, I can't help notice that you keep speaking about this guy in the past tense.
Well, in January 1996, just 4 months after he gave his famous lecture, Phil Schneider was found dead in his apartment.
No, come on.
Apparently, he had taken his own life.
Oh, come on.
It's a good chance that when I fly back to Reno, to Vegas, I have to drive home. You know, I have my car down in Vegas, I have to drive home alone. I'm scared to death.
Phil Schneider was constantly worried. He told his family that if he was ever found dead, to not believe the story, that it was murder. A few weeks after that, Phil Schneider was found dead in his apartment. At first, his death was ruled unknown, even though he had a medical tube wrapped around his neck. And a lot of details about his death don't add up. First, there was no note. Also, he had enough pills on hand to die painlessly. He also had a gun. The medical tube was wrapped around his throat 3 times and then tied in a knot under his chin. Now, strangling yourself this way seems difficult, especially in Phil's case. He was missing half of his left hand. His shoulders had limited motion. He had brittle bone syndrome from cancer and spent a lot of time in a wheelchair. He was a weak and frail man. The medical examiner, for some reason, refused to visit the scene, though he was legally required to. He did take blood and urine samples, but refused to test them because he said it was a waste of time. And when Phil's family inquired about those samples, they were told they were sent to an independent lab and were now missing. When Phil's ex-wife Cynthia went to collect his belongings, everything was gone. Recordings of Phil's lectures, photographs, research, even physical evidence from Dulce Base. It was all missing. And then something very strange happened. An obituary appeared in the local paper saying Phil died of a stroke. Phil's family didn't write that obituary. So who did?
Any senator, House of Representative, first president of the United States, vice president, any cabinet member to lie to the American public is a traitor and should be dealt with in an appropriate fashion.
Phil Schneider wasn't the only person who claimed to know about Dulce Base. Thomas Castello was a military photographer with top-secret clearance, and he specialized in photographing sensitive projects. Castello worked in an underground facility near Nellis Air Force Base in Nevada, most likely Area 51. He also worked at Dulce Base. In 1987, Costello turned whistleblower, and before he left Dulce Base, he stole a set of documents that were eventually called the Dulce Papers. He also stole 30 black and white photos as well as videotape.
There are several things you should know about. I took an oath under penalty of death that no matter what I saw or heard, I would never divulge the information. At the Dulce Base, treason is anything that mentions the details of daily operations at this facility when outside the confinement of this base. When I first arrived, the story they told us was that this is a tri-biotransfer facility with advanced technology doing advanced adventurous methodology for medical and mental gains, which is a fancy way of saying they do really risky things with human life just to see what would happen.
This is the most famous Costello photograph, humans in pods.
Oh, what the hell's going on here?
Well, you know how aliens harvest human hormones for various purposes?
I'm trying to forget it, but yeah.
Well, these are cloning pads. Much easier to use humans as a food source when you could just grow them in a tube. Costello was the first person to show us the different floors of Dulce Base and what they were used for. Level 1 is security and communications. Level 2 is human staff and housing.
Wait a minute. If there's a floor labeled human staff, then that means...
There is housing for non-human staff.
No.
Level 3 is executive offices and labs. Level 4 is mind control experiments. Level 5 is alien housing. Level 6 is genetic experiments and the zoo.
Oh, the zoo?
Oh yeah. When genetic splicing between humans and aliens was successful, they would often put the hybrid creature on display.
Oh, boy.
And level 7 is cryogenics and cold storage. Yeah?
This story, this is a lot.
Oh, have you had too much?
Oh, wait, there's more?
Oh, much more.
The alien agenda is the complete takeover of this planet, the killing off of 5, 6, 7/8 of the world's population by the year 2029. U.S. military has known about this for 45 years. They've told no one.
Most of the information we get from Costello comes from a single interview he gave called the Bratton interview, and I'll link the full text below. Apparently there were, or are, over 180,000 aliens working in the facility. Costello gives us details about how the base is administered, and there are many different races that work there, and they're divided into ruling castes and worker castes.
Well, obviously humans are workers.
Obviously. But there are also alien worker castes, and ultimately all races report to a single ruling class called the Draco.
It sounds like
Lizard people.
lizard people. Yes. Hey, speaking of lizard people, now is a great time to pick up a Hecklefish lizard people mug. It makes a great gift.
What are you doing?
What? Someone's got to do the plugs. Go to shop.thewifiles.com and grab your lizard people mug today.
Anyway, the Draco,
Lizard people.
the lizard people are not alien. They evolved from reptiles and dinosaurs and have remained hidden. They created the underground tunnel system hundreds or thousands of years ago. In the 1960s, they were made to be more suitable to humans and other races that the Draco created.
Creators?
Oh yeah, the Draco created races for labor.
The worker caste does the daily chores, mopping the latex floors, cleaning the cages, bringing food to the hungry people and to other species. It is their job to formulate the proper mixture for the Type 1 and Type 2 beings that the Draco race has created. The working caste work at the labs as well as at the computer banks. Basically speaking, the reptilian races are active at all levels of the Dulce base. There are several different races of aliens that work on the east section of Level 6.
Thomas Costello lived the rest of his life in hiding in Europe. He's since passed away, but if you're interested in hearing more from him, I'll post a link to a message board where he answers a lot more questions. And I just scratched the surface here. His interview is the rabbitest of rabbit holes.
Rabbitist?
Shut up.
I say.
John Lear might have had a more interesting life than his father, William Lear, who invented the Lear jet. John Lear was a pilot who broke 17 world records in many types of aircraft. He flew cargo planes for the CIA in the 60s and 70s. John Lear was also one of the most visible proponents of the theory that not only are aliens here on Earth, but they're also colluding with the United States government. Lear became interested in UFOs in 1986 after talking with U.S. Air Force personnel who witnessed the UFO landing at Ben Orders Air Force Base near London. In that encounter, 3 small aliens walked right up to Wing Commander General Gordon Williams, and that became known as the Rendlesham Forest Incident. In 1988, Lear released a document titled UFO Cover-Up that